Hey guys, it's your boy Tacho here, back with some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and today we're going to be covering builds for the 3 5-star exclusive units that we're going to get on the Journey Begins banner. So Midori, Rinkah, and Lilith, and we're going to start things off with Midori. So for Midori's base kit, she has the Spendthrift Bow, and this is actually a really crazy weapon. What it does is it's going to grant attack up 7 to her, and inflict attack -7 on the foe, and there's really no downside to that. I mean, the only thing is that after combat, if she attacks the foe, she is going to gain +2 special charge, so that's going to make it harder to utilize high cost special attacks like say Aether and such, but that's not really that big of a problem if you use something like Noontime or Moonbow that she's probably going to be able to activate within 1 round of combat. The downside to Spendthrift Bow isn't even that big of a deal, and because it does -7 attack on the foe, that's essentially like giving her +7 to defense and res, so in a sense it is better than the Guard Bow in that way, and also the Guard Bow only activates when the foes initiate combat on you, whereas the Spendthrift Bow is going to activate whether or not Midori gets initiated on, so no matter what, she's always going to get 7 attack and inflict -7 attack on the foes. So a really crazy bow and a really insane inheritable weapon as well. I'm just surprised that it's so good. She also comes with Rally Attack and Defense Plus, so really nice for scoring. Close Foil in the A slot, which is actually way better than Distant Ward, because by comparison to Distant Ward, where you're not able to counterattack bows and daggers that are very common, in the case of Close Foil, the only unit that you can't counterattack is Dragon-type units, so that's not even that bad, and the additional +5 attack and defense you get from Close Foil is going to outperform Close Counter in the long run. So Close Foil, I would say, is actually a really good skill. And finally, she's got Chill Attack, which isn't too bad. I mean, it's going to drop the foe's attack by 7 if they have the highest attack on the enemy team. And combined with Spendthrift Bow, that's just going to be a crazy attack reduction to the foes. They're barely even going to be able to touch her, and it may look like her res isn't that great at 21, but because of the Spendthrift Bow, it's actually not that bad, and you can also refine it to get the res refined, so pretty much Midori is a perfect unit all around. Only bad thing is that her speed is kinda in the middle. So recommended IVs for Midori, I gotta go with plus attack. Of course, Midori is mighty, and you definitely want to go for that awesome +4 attack, because she does have the super boon in that. And her base attack is 41, which is sky high, and I have no idea how this girl has such a high attack. She is definitely eating that spinach like Popeye, so her attack is crazy. And for the budget build, we don't really have to do too much. Of course, we're going to take the Res Refine on the Spendthrift Bow, so she has a better matchup against mages. And like I talked about before, we are going to run Moonbow as her special attack, so she can activate that during combat in most cases, and you're not going to suffer from the downside of Spendthrift Bow. In the B slot, we are going to change Chill Attack for Quick Repost. I do feel like Quick Repost is the better option overall, being able to let her get double attacks when the foes initiate combat on her, and it's going to fix her low speed a little bit, so definitely go for Quick Repost. And in the C slot, we've got Attack Smoke, which we can inherit from her papa, Kaze, so nice to see him helping out his little girl. And for the Sacred Seal, I think Mirror Stance is probably the best bet. It's going to give her +4 attack and +4 res when the foes initiate, so once again, it's going to give her a better matchup against those mages. And pretty much anyone in general, because the +4 attack is also going to help in the melee matchups. And alternatively, Dull Ranged is a pretty clutch option on her, so she can negate the buffs on any ranged opponent. And in the event that ranged opponents are trying to use Blade Tomes on her, she's just going to crush them. And Distant Defense is also going to be good, giving her +6 to defense and res against any ranged opponent, which she is going to be able to bait pretty easily with the Spendthrift Bow and Close Foil. So Distant Defense, always a good option on these bait-type units. And for the high investment build, once again, we're keeping pretty much most of it. Her base kit was really good, and her weapon, of course, I think it's arguably the best inheritable bow in the game right now. So all we're giving her is lull attack and defense and pulse smoke in the B and the C slot. Lull attack and defense combined with the spendthrift bow is going to be crazy on the enemy phase. And we've also got close foil. So the amount of attack that she gains in this way, with lull attack and defense negating the foe's buffs to defense and inflicting -3, spendthrift bow giving her +7 attack, and close foil giving her +5 attack. Midori is going to be the mightiest of all, and she's going to smite her opponents into the next dimension. She's also gaining a crazy amount of defense in this manner. Spendthrift bow does -7 attack to the foes, close foil gives her +5 defense, and lull attack and defense negates the foe's buffs to attack while giving them -3 attack in the process. So this is just a crazy defensive tanky build, and it's going to be very difficult to hurt her with physical attacks. Pulse Smoke, of course, is there so she can match up well against infantry pulse teams. And we've got Quick Repost as the seal so she can double attack when foes initiate. And Midori is an infantry class unit, so of course Null Sea Disrupt is also an option in the B slot. So you can go ahead and counterattack Fire Sweep and Dazzling Staff opponents. So overall pretty good. Midori looks like a really awesome unit, and a very nice infantry red bow. Her attack stat is also really high, so alternatively, if you wanted to run a completely different type of build, you could go with Brave Bow setups on her, and in that case you would run stuff like Sturdy Impact in the A slot and such. But I do like the concept of keeping the Spendthrift Bow on her, since it's so offensive and defensive at the same time. Okay, so next up, we've got Rinkah. Rinkah's abs are so shredded, man. She is sexy as hell. And her base kit is also pretty solid. Rinkah's club is going to grant +5 to her attack and defense when the foes initiate combat, or if she is not at full HP. And it's also going to grant her +1 special charge per foe's attack. So that's similar to the breath effect, except it's not going to work when she attacks the foes. But unlike breath skills, it will work on the player phase if she is below full health when she attacks the opponents. So it's a pretty awesome weapon. It also does special cooldown count -1, so skills like Bonfire that she defaults with, instead of being a 3-hit charge, it's going to be a 2-hit charge. And as soon as the foes attack her, she's just going to be able to counterattack immediately with Bonfire. She also has Wrath to raise her damage by even more. She's also got Distant Foil to grant her +5 to attack and defense when the foes initiate if they are a physical type opponent. But one downside to Distant Foil is that it's not quite as good as Close Foil, because it doesn't include magic or staff units, and you're not going to be able to get a counterattack on them. And of course, magic and staff units make up a majority of the ranged threats that you're going to fight. So only being able to distant counter against bows and dagger type opponents is really not good enough. So both Distant Foil and Distant Ward I don't really think are power creep versions of Distant Counter. But in the case of Close Foil, where the only opponents you can't counterattack are dragons, I do think the close skills are a little better. And finally, she's got Even Defense Wave, which is just okay. I mean, I'm not a fan of the wave skills. They only activate every other turn, so it's not really a consistent buff. But it does grant the buff to herself as well as allies, unlike most of the other buffs that only buff your other allies. So that is one good thing about the wave skills. And for recommended IVs on Rinkah, she does have a super boon in both speed and defense. So I think both of those are fantastic options. But me personally, I think plus speed is probably the best way to go. It's going to help her out a lot on the player phase. And her defense is already so crazy that I don't really think you need to invest in her defense too much more. She is of course getting 5 defense from her weapon, so I would give the nod to her speed super boon in this case. And for the budget build, all we're really doing here is giving her an assist and a sacred seal. So reposition, the bread and butter assist skill. Feel free to use any assist you want. And brazen attack and defense as the seal. It's going to work very nicely with Wrath, because she is going to want to be on a little bit lower HP than normal. And once that happens, brazen attack and defense is also going to kick in. So overall, pretty good for a budget build. Just be very careful against ranged opponents like mages and staff units, because she is not going to be able to counterattack against them. And even dragon types could be a problem for her since we're not really gaining any res on this particular build. So her 18 res, which is very, very low for a bait unit, is really not doing us any favors on this one. But it's all good, just be careful about who you're having her fight and things should work out just fine. Alternate options, you could go with close defense as the seal. It's going to give her +6 defense and res against melee opponents. And that's going to help a little bit against the dragons because they are all melee types. And having the +6 res against them is definitely going to work out. Mirror Stance is another option too, if you want to get the +4 attack and res when any enemy initiates combat. Okay, so for the high investment build now, we're really going to abuse the fact that she's fast and she's an infantry unit. So we're going to go ahead and give her Close Call, or feel free to use Repel instead. They're pretty much the exact same, except Close Call is going to do hit and run after combat, whereas Repel is going to push the foes one space forward after combat. So I think Close Call has some better applications in the long run, but Repel is fine as well, just pick your favorite between those two. We are going to go for Distant Counter. Like I've explained already, I do feel like it's a little bit better than Distant Foil, because mages are just way too common. And with the combination of Close Call and her crazy high speed stat, she's going to be able to start using damage reduction on the foes. And even though she has a low res at 18 neutral, even magic type opponents are going to have a hard time hurting her when she has Close Call doing -40% damage. So pretty good stuff. Also with Rinkah's club, as soon as the foes attack her, she's going to be able to instantly activate Soul on the counterattack. So it's very good for a sustain build, and she's going to keep healthy very often. Pulse Smoke in the C slot, so we can combat infantry pulse teams. And Distant Defense as the seals, so we can just gain an extra bit of res against those ranged opponents. But there are a lot of different spins you could take on this build. Her weapon granting -1 cooldown count and also giving the breath effect makes her a prime choice for the Special Spiral and Aether build that we'd like to use on a unit like Legendary Ike. Her weapon brings Aether down to a 4-hit cooldown, so it's essentially the same thing as Radiant Aether. And with Special Spiral and the combination of the breath effect on her weapon, she can pretty much activate Aether after every hit, so long as you get her special to activate at least once in the fight. So a very crazy combo on her and a very good option. You can also, of course, go for Null Sea Disrupt in the B slot if you want to counterattack Fire Sweep and Dazzling Staff opponents. So pretty crazy stuff. Rinkah looks like she's going to be an awesome bait unit, and having such a high speed stat on a bait unit like this is going to give her some player phase presence as well. So she's an awesome unit. And finally, we've got Lilith. So Lilith's weapon is insane, allowing her to just instantly jump to a unit that has support with her. So there's a ton of movement shenanigans you can pull off with that. It does suck that she's a dragon and she can't have Gale Force, otherwise that would have been the perfect weapon on her. But it's still really good, and it also grants +5 to all of her stats if she's within 3 spaces of her support ally. So the amount of stats she's gaining when she has such a high base stat total and she's incredibly well-rounded statistically, it's just insane how high her stats are going to be. So Lilith's a really good unit. She also comes with Reposition, Attack and Speed Bond, Defense and Res Link, and Joint Drive Attack. So Joint Drive Attack is a brand new skill, and I think this is going to be a really meta choice on a lot of units now, because granting +4 attack as a drive effect to your allies, while also gaining the same effect to yourself, is a nice way to add damage. And if you think about it, there's really no consistent way to add attack to yourself in the C-slot passive. We do have stuff like Defense Smoke, as well as the wave skills, but those aren't really consistent enough. Whereas I feel like Joint Drive Attack is going to be pretty consistent overall, and giving the attack buff to yourself as well as allies is going to be real clutch in the future. So keep an eye out on these Joint Drive skills, they look like they're going to be pretty awesome. And recommended IVs, I'm going to have to say plus attack. She does have a super boon and attack, so you're probably going to want to go for that +4 attack if you can get it. But plus speed isn't a bad option either. She does have a crazy high speed stat, so stacking speed on a fast unit is never going to be a bad choice. Okay, so for the budget build, we're going to be running Moonbow as her special. Sadly, because she's a dragon and she can't have Gale Force, we're not able to use that. We're also not able to use Ruptured Sky either, so, I mean, Moonbow is probably going to be her best bet in the long haul. And we're giving her Swift Sparrow as the Sacred Seal. I don't really see much of a reason to change any of her default skills. They work pretty well with her weapon and what she's trying to do. So the budget build, we really don't need to do too much for Lilith. And what's really awesome is that she's a flying type unit. So when she's jumping to her support partner, it doesn't matter what spaces they're next to. Like, let's say they're next to a bunch of mountain tiles, that's not going to bother her. In the case of certain Wings of Mercy units that can't walk over mountain tiles. So having that flying mobility with her weapon is actually a very sick combination. And you can also, of course, go ahead and run stuff like Flyer Guidance or Guidance on her, so she can just support the team even more and allow other allies to jump to her. And if you just want to raise her own potency in melee combat, as opposed to using defense and res link, you could just go for Dull Close. It's basically the budget version of lull skills, and it actually ends up being pretty good on flying type units, because they're not allowed to have the regular lull skills in the first place. So Dull Close is actually a really good choice for any flying type unit, so pretty good stuff there. And finally, for the high investment build, we're going to go ahead and run Sturdy Impact as the A-slot passive. It's going to grant plus 10 to her defense, which is actually her lowest stat overall. So being able to patch up her defense and give her some more bulk when she's attacking the foes is going to be real nice. It also negates the foe's follow-up attacks, so you're going to be even more of an offensive threat on the player phase. But there are actually a couple of other options in the A-slot if you want. You could go for Fury 4, which is going to be real nice on a unit like this that has all-around really high stats. And another nice thing about Fury 4 is the chip damage. So if she enters combat and the foes get a hit off on her before she finishes them off, and you add the plus 8 damage you take from Fury 4, it's possible that she could get below half HP. And if that happens, then all of your allies with Wings of Mercy are going to be able to jump to her. So she can start up a potential jump link where you can just do a whole ton of warp shenanigans in the same turn and just keep attacking the foes until you win. So Fury 4 and Attack and Speed Push could be possible A-slot options for that. Also, Attack and Speed Bond 4 isn't too bad. It's going to negate any of her penalties to attack and speed, while also giving her a massive attack and speed bonus as long as she's next to an ally, which she's pretty much always going to be thanks to her weapon. So really good stuff, and regardless of whatever skills you decide to go with, I think Lilith is going to be a monster on the player phase. And that's going to wrap us up for the builds today, guys. So hope you enjoyed the video, and hope these builds gave you some cool ideas for how you want to play these units. I'm actually debating whether or not I'm going to summon on the banner. I believe the banner is dropping later tonight, and the thing about the banner is that it's going to have the 40 summon counter, and we're also going to be getting tickets from Forging Bonds. So it's not going to cost a lot of orbs at all if you want to summon and go for a free 5-star focus unit. So I think I'm actually going to go for it, and I haven't decided yet who my free summon is going to be. We'll probably have to go ahead and summon first and see if we manage to get any of them there, and then I'll just go ahead and free pull either the unit that we didn't get or the one who I want the most, which at the moment I think it might actually be Midori. So let me know in the comment section down below if you're planning to summon on the banner and you're going to go for the 40 summon freebie. Which one of these units are you going to pick and why? So let me know that in the comments. And as always, this is your boy Tacho signing out. So I'll catch you guys again in the next one.